Well, it's that time of the week again. We appreciate everybody for joining us. My name is Eric Missick. I'm joined by Joe Colangelo, two founders of Bear Analytics. So we're at our weekly Bear Event Insight webinar series, and we have another guest joining us this week, and a person that we love to have with us now as a guest, which is Dana Freker Doody. She's the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Juno, and I'm told she's a 20-year devotee to the events industry. And our topic today is going to be about the future of community. So what meaningful engagement means today, tomorrow, and in the future. So Dana's going to bring us through that and talk to us about what she's seeing in the market and what her clients are doing in the community space. And as always, we ask you to definitely ask questions throughout today's webinar. You can throw those in the chat box, you can throw them in the question box, send them to me privately or publicly, and we'll get those in front of Dana and Joe to be handled throughout. Make sure your burning questions are answered, and we'll have a great time here. So with that, I'll turn over to Joe to run us through.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Dana, thank you very much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. And let's get right to it, and let's get started. What is Juno and what is community?
So I have a history in community, Joe, because I was a community journalist. And so that's kind of a thread that's been throughout my career in journalism. And when I went into trade shows and events, and now here at Juno, is kind of this thing of community. And obviously I'm involved in my own physical community and, different aspects of that. And I've been involved in digital community as an early adopter of Twitter right here in front of you today, ladies and gentlemen. But when we think about community, we really have to think about it first loosely in terms of it's just a fellowship, a group of others who might share some interest with you or an attitude or some goal of you, right? So there's that loose definition of it. But when we started looking at it from a technology perspective, which Juno is a technology company, a software company that enables virtual and hybrid events, community and networking connections, and learning experiences, right, all online. So when we look at what is a digital community, kind of the same thing. It's a grouping of people who have come together because they share some kind of common interest, attitude, or goal, but they're doing that online. And a lot of times they're self-selecting into those communities, right? And they're building their own networks. And what we're seeing increasingly is associations are creating those digital communities. They have community forums, and they're doing a lot of one-way delivery sometimes on digital platforms. But a digital community allows for the users and the members of that community to connect with each other, perhaps outside of the scope or even the listening ears of the organizer.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there that I just want to unpack, because obviously, the kind of, if we're sticking strictly on the association standpoint, when, events kind of through the throes of the pandemic, it was hard to understand exactly what that community looked like. You all, it sounds like, are plugging right into that, creating a real opportunity from a digital standpoint. And facilitating, I love that word fellowship, by the way. That's the first time I've ever heard anyone describe community like that. There's a lot of facets to that just resonate. So thanks for bringing that up. But maybe speak a little bit to, so the audience that, maybe they're hearing community kind of as a buzzword, and now you've just unlocked this whole fellowship kind of concept with that. But what does it look like for an association when this is done well?
What it looks like for an association when just community building in general is done well is you're bringing people to you, but then there's that extra layer of other people bringing people to you because they're saying, hey, you should, come hang out with me here and have some sort of fellowship with me here. These people have created this entity, right? This organizer is at the hub because they have created this opportunity for the community to come together, like they would at an event, right? There was always community around an event. Some people in the community are super involved and they're on the board and they're on the planning committee and all that. And then there's other people who are just there attending and they're stakeholders, right, who are exhibiting or sponsoring. And when you shift that into the digital arena, it's very fleeting, right? Just like an event that comes together, there's a big community there, and then sometimes it would disappear. And the life of an association is they're engaging their members 365 days a year. And when I say they're engaging members 365 days a year, it's not that they're producing content or talking to every single member every day, but they're there offering the tools that that community needs to perform their function any day that they need it. So what we're really seeing associations do now is say, okay, here is a digital space where you can come together and do these things, and we're going to offer some specific programming in here. We're going to have some content. We're going to have some experiences that we're offering, but we're also allowing for you then to connect with each other. And there's a lot of power in enabling member-to-member connections, or even at events like the buyer-to-seller connection, right? I mean, what did it say in my bio? I'm a devotee, a trade show devotee. Is that what Eric?
That's right.
So
Yep.
there's always that element, of the buyers and sellers coming together. So we have to remember that they're all part of the community and that they need to connect to each other. But what we're increasingly learning about how adults learn and how adults get their jobs done is they want to talk to each other. They don't necessarily want that force-fed one-way communication. They want to be able to connect with each other.
So, okay, I'm taking notes because there's a couple of things that I want to go back to. Early in your response, I think one of the things that you went quickly through it, but I think is quite brilliant, is I heard you're using, it's a way for associations, and by the way, not just associations, as we talked about in our pre-call, but it's a way for these groups that organize individuals around a particular topic area or industry area to actually use the network effect of those members or folks in the community to get new members and folks to convert from being non-members or not in the community into there. Because we hear this all the time, especially like in the events realm, is, I'm looking to get new people and new organizations. How do I do it? Well, you can do some of the, blasting emails, buying lists, retargeting, but this is really like almost like recommendation generated, because it's like, hey, I just had this experience. I just looked at this piece of content. You need to join me in here. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really a replication of what we see in physical communities, right? Like, you're not going to go to church for 4 weeks out of a month and not hear somebody say, bring your friend. Right? So it's the same thing with a community digitally, is if there is a marketing aspect to it. And I think I tend to look at things a little bit through that marketing lens quite a bit, because it's functionally what I've been doing for a career in marketing and communications. But one, you want to build your network before you need it, right? So you need to be continually expanding that. And I think where we can go from here, Joe, is not only building new people into your community who are then perhaps more predisposed to attend your events or consume your programming or give you dollars or join your association, but there's also massive opportunity in community technology for retention of members.
Okay, I don't think anyone's ears didn't perk up when you said that. So just let's keep the ball rolling. Let's unpack that. What do you? Because again, I don't think a lot of folks are going, we're retaining everybody. I'm not too worried about it.
Right, and yes. And we saw that a lot in the past 2 years, of a lot of people were members of associations because there were physical opportunities to get together with other members, right, that were suddenly taken away from them. So the association's value in their eyes dropped, right? We can talk about, perceived value of members and whether people are communicating their value proposition well enough to their membership. But Chris Vaughn with Sequence Consulting did a webinar with me last week and shared a stat that I was really shocked by, because as a marketer, you know that it's 8 times cheaper to retain retain a customer than it is to go get a new one, right? So that's why there's so much focus on member retention just to start with. But also what he shared was, if a member does not engage with the products, services, or offerings that the association is putting out there, within the first 90 days of membership, their likelihood of renewal at the end of the year drops to 50%.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
that's a stat and a half, full stop. Sorry, keep going.
No, but I mean, these are the kinds of things I think about, in sport and in business, is what is the lever that's actually going to matter? Like if you pull on this one lever, this is the one that's going to matter for the whole big problem that you're trying to solve. And if that first 90 days, if some sort of engagement within that first 90 days is really that lever that you need to be pulling, then let's go all in and focus on that lever and figure out what those members need to be enticed to engage, right? Sometimes it's an event, sometimes it's, a board member reaching out on the telephone, right? But that's really a spot to concentrate. And by having a community technology platform in place, we see how the different types of programming and the access to other members, particularly like a membership forum, who could help that new member in those first 90 days solve a professional challenge that they are having immediately. They're going to remember that, right? They're going to then be engaged and know that that membership community is what will help them in their business.
So going back to the initial engagement kind of comment, it sounds like, if I'm summarizing this correctly, community is a great way to avoid that kind of 90-day. You've already done the sensitivity analysis for everyone on this call, right? Like you said, what should I be pulling on? And you're like, hey,
Right.
Here's one thing, this intra 90-day engagement. Community is a phenomenal way to get this done, because the reality is people are coming with a number of different professional challenges that may have resulted in their signing up. This particularly strikes me when you think about associations that have like student conversions into professional development, and you see this kind of drop off. There's usually like a low price point. You may be automatically joined as a student through whatever professional society you're in, and then when it comes time to become effectively a paid member, it's a little harder to justify that expense, especially when you're an early career, right? And you're an early salary and early career and all of those kind of younger professional challenges.
Right.
This seems like a very natural gap filler where it's digital, it's content oriented. There's a lot of training, and I mean, talk to me a little bit about what that looks like. Am I honing in on something? Does that resonate?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, first, like student engagement in particular, like they're used to going to class and, talking about the ideas or going to a lab afterward and talking about it with a TA and kind of brainstorming all these ideas and getting input from a lot of different people. And then all of a sudden that ends, right? You get hired for a job and you're expected to do the job. And there's not always a lot of like joint collaboration effort there. And I do think that is a hole that community technology can fill, because I mean, specifically on Juno, it allows for delivery of content, right? So virtual events, hybrid events, mobile, desktop, all that kind of stuff. But within the events, Joe, is events that are put on by the association, right? So that's like a one-way delivery system of content. But then there's also look at, when you're shopping for this kind of technology, is the ease with which a group of people can come together and do a roundtable, right? Like when I first started in trade shows in the .com era, it was birds of a feather, right? We would have a room, we would order pizza, and people would go there and they would talk for 3 or 4 hours about storage area networks and some specific problem about it. Like, the way our world works now is those physical opportunities are not as readily available. And so while they can't be exactly replicated in technology, right? That's not what I'm like arguing here for. The feelings of belonging and the solutions of these people can help me, those are the feelings that we're trying to recreate inside of the technology, is allowing those people to come together without the pizza, but to solve their problems. Okay, so it's then becomes user-generated content. So we have one-way content delivery inside of community tech, and then two is the user-generated content. Like, how can we bring these people into roundtables? What kind of discussion forums are they going to have? Because you want people who want to interact on video like we're doing here, and you want people who want to read those community forums and those digests and put their questions out and have 4 plumbers in St. Louis say, oh, it's really a problem with your ground soil, right? So events, and then the networking is, we see a lot of success, and I know a lot of associations, you know, all associations fall somewhere on the spectrum of this, but in allowing users and members to interact with each other without any oversight, right? Just free for all, and then, you know, having the moderated forums and panels and all that kind of stuff. But allowing for the member-to-member connections at any place on that spectrum, moderated or not, that is going to strengthen the engagement that a member feels with other members, and therefore with your association.
And so I guess my takeaway from that is, and maybe you kind of indirectly got at this, like, it's way beyond just the forum aspect, right? Which is, I think, been maybe the historical preconceived notion of what is a community, and it's more of this like question and answer board. It could have that feature set because there's a value to it. Sure. But a roundtable against a forum is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
And so there's a multi-dimensionalness to this that I don't think should be, I guess maybe I didn't fully appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about the company that I work for, Joe, right? Is because we're recognizing the value that video has in that equation, right? Because I'm a, you know, old school journalist. I like to read things. I am very rare among the people that I'm interacting with, and that I would rather read something than have a video of something, right? And in that, I would rather type things back and forth instead of, at some point when you're typing things back and forth inside of a community discussion board, we're going to video, right? Let's talk it out. And when the community technology is kind of an all-in-one solution, you know, you're able to I'm such a good little speaker trying not to do a sales pitch. But when you're able to do things in one platform, you're able to make it an easier user experience than like, hey, let's do a Google Meet. Are you free at this time or that time or whatever?
Yeah. No, it's good. There's a cohesion, right? And you're reducing the friction.
Yes. So that it's just that the video is another tool that I think associations really need to be looking at, how they're enabling their members to come together, not just, to your point, in that community forum, the digest, but with new and improved ways that we have developed as human beings, like FaceTime, right? Like, help them get together in the ways in which human beings want to connect today. Help them do that on your own platform. If you're at the hub, this is my thing, is if you're at the hub of it, you're always going to be seen as the source of the solution, right? And the value of the association is always going to be seen as much higher. Just because you let a member connect with another member and they get together over here and go on their own and do a video call, you're not exited out of that equation, right? Like, you're there supporting that. I think associations with that strong brand recognition, and as you do improve with your, you know, value perception, I don't think that's a very, very big fear for people. Shouldn't be.
Or maybe if it is, you kind of just dispelled it, which is super helpful. So thank you for that and those sentiments. So you're talking about, well, what we're talking about right now though is current state, right? This is here. You're not like, we're going to launch a video module like that. Everything you just mentioned and all the value associated with it is current state.
Yeah.
Let's put on your forecaster hat. Let's try to see around corners. Where do you think this goes to 2, 3, 4 years from now?
I think that things continue to get smarter and easier, right? I mean, I'm not the tech product guy or gal to say like this is a piece of tech, but we're thinking about things in terms of short, right? So instead of long form content, people want short content. So trying to enable tools to have shorter contact and to encourage people to go like, okay, you now have 8 comments on this post. Do you want to start a roundtable discussion, right? And so I think we'll soon be able to have just even more easier tools, and the AI will start recognizing those things. So it won't even have a moderator in there who has to do that, right? I also think that we're going to continue, like, obviously the computers are continuing to get smarter at a faster rate than Dana is, but we'll continue to see recommendation engines learn more and more about a specific community and the habits of the people within that community and the professionals within that community. And as patterns develop, it's just going to keep getting smarter and smarter, and therefore easier and easier for your users to connect with each other. I think that the user-generated content, we've been talking about that term for a long time in marketing, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Like even at an event, if you are putting on, a trade show, and then you have, meeting rooms where you've hired speakers to come and speak, the amount of user-generated content that your exhibitors are putting on in that exhibit floor, I mean, that's what that is. Right? That's what that is. So the more we think about those definitions in broader terms, will be beneficial. And I think it's going to be interesting too, Joe. The other thing that I think about, mainly as the mother of an 18-year-old person, is the 99-cent purchase. So the younger generations are so much more willing to be like, oh, I'll give you 99 cents for that, right? Like in their app, they're like, yeah, okay. And so seeing the business models of associations, specifically those who are offering educational content and membership, seeing those models switch to monthly, right? Monthly payments, and it puts them even on more account to be smarter at the marketing, and they're supported by the AI that's personalizing the content. Like you paid, $49.99 for this course. Look at this course that the association just released. So I think that's one thing that I see in the future is the actual financial revenue models shifting there a little bit, or a lot. It's really a lot. I shouldn't say a little bit.
I was going to say, I think you're right about it shifting a lot. So let's talk about your last 2 points on the user-generated content. The exhibitor example was particularly insightful, in my opinion, because if you multiply the number of exhibitors you have in the 3 or 4 days and what they're actually doing, now you've just instantly given them a longer tail on that investment that they're
Right.
making in your show. Or that is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And everyone that we talk to is in this big return to revenue mindset, and that's a huge hunker of a lot of organizations' revenue sitting right there. And so for them to be like, hey, you can showcase the buzz at your booth, your product, your content, FAQs on how to use it, to a targeted group of where your buyers are already aggregating. I mean, that's
Right.
a real use case.
Right.
That's a no nonsense.
I mean, I was on the phone this morning with, SourceForge, right? And all these big tech like compendiums with reviews and things. And the fact that associations have not started those kinds of services, or at least developed them, I'm sure some of y'all have, but those kinds of supplier directories even, and supplier reviews, and all of that inside of the association's purview, I think that is a sacred cow that could end up on the chopping block, Joe. The other one is, recognizing that exhibitors are putting forth some awesome content at the show physically, but then also how are you pulling that into your digital community, right? That can be done, like letting people lead. And that is understood another scary proposition, because there are some bad apples in the exhibitor bucket, right? Who are just going on there and they're doing a sales pitch. And so associations like, no, we're not going to allow that. And I understand medical, that this is actually regulated. So taking those subsets off the table. But how can you create a situation where you're working with the digital marketing team of the exhibiting company, and developing something inside of that community platform where they're bringing the thought leaders, right? They're bringing their product developers or their, experts from within their company. It's not just the high level leaders who are offering, or the sales woman, right? Who's doing the content. I think that some smart organizations are digging a little bit deeper into the companies that want to give them money, but they also want to get something very specific out of it. And technology will allow for some of those things to come to the forefront.
Well, and they're also supplying the content. So they're in some regards, they're creating the supply side of that equation as well. So we're running, I mean, this is incredible. We're running a little low on time, but I got one last question regarding the 99%, or sorry, the 99 cent purchase, and being able to bundle things, in smaller dollar amounts and more frequent cadences, kind of how the rest of the world purchases content is, I believe, where you're going, with that. So as associations look to recruit that next generation of members, what is the alternative if they don't make this a tech-enabled exercise? Because you mentioned, I think, like, hey, this is AI, like there's some powerful tool sets today already behind that.
Right.
How do you get there without it? I'm asking you to sell against yourself right now. What's the counterbalance to that, right?
I mean, the counter is really someone else is going to do it.
That's right.
Just like you see, independent show companies coming into a hot market and creating a trade show and, blowing an association out of the water in terms of attendance and exhibitor and sponsor dollars. You're going to see the same thing happen on the technology side. Starting a digital community is kind of a low dollar thing. And it's an investment that, one, secures you against somebody else coming into your market, right? And saying, all you people, we're going to take care of you. We're going to allow you to introduce yourselves to each other and connect and network on your own. It's really a lot of defense, and obviously, like you said, sell against yourself. Associations need to be doing the same thing, right? Like, what's going to put me out of business?
So this is the moat for an association. They're well positioned because they sit at the center of an industry or a technical specialty, and it's really just about maybe setting a little bit of strategy and then letting the tool set do its work.
Yeah, optimizing that position, right? And maximizing that. Yeah.
This has been incredibly insightful, Dana. And for those of you that decided to join the webinar today, it ended up being a masterclass in community. Thank you very much for being part of this. Eric, do we have any questions?
Yeah.
We don't currently have any questions, but I think Dana ticked them all off. So maybe that's why we don't have any questions. Usually we have some questions, but Dana, like you said, masterclass.
Hopefully it went into an area that is intriguing to people, because we are seeing clients have success in this and increasing their active members online and allowing people to engage with others. We'll have to do another webinar about how to measure the success of your community.
It's not even a question. You're coming back. We got to do this. This is the way the tech's moving at the rate of speed. This has got to be like a once in a quarter thing. I know you guys are just piling up the successful case studies under your belt. And folks, like you said, folks need to hear from it, because this isn't going away anytime soon.
It's not. No, it's not. Even if some people want it to.
Thank you very much, Dana.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to
Oh yeah, this has been awesome.
Good to see
Thank
ya.
you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good day.
everybody. See you. Bye-bye.
Talk soon. See ya.